to another city to take a job.
Very good.
And be with my boyfriend at the same time.
Yes, I went back and did a lot of research, and I traveled more than I ever traveled in my whole life during that 2-year period in my 20s. And I also signed up for a trade school in something that I'm passionate about, which is communications at a young age. So that was one of my aspirations. So does anybody else have an awareness of something they did? Traveling. Again, it doesn't have to look a certain way. It could be anything. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of minor, but it's like I started kindergarten, and so it'd be like
Yeah.
beginning of my full education, and I really liked school, so
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
obviously a
Yeah.
transformation time.
That is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? What about things that you were learning then? Anyone? I mean, things you were applying yourself to. When we talk about higher learning, higher education, it's really past what we just learned when we get out of high school. This is like, wow, Sag says, I want to know about that. I want to go there. I want to experience it. I want to explore that. Does that make sense? Sharon?
So back in that period of my life, I was working for in education. I was a teacher's aide at that time, but I was also somewhat participating in unions, and so there was this person who needed some help getting some clarity about her job. So I decided to be part of the union rep that helped her bring forth her grievance, and went all the way to arbitration. And from that point, and you know, it was so clear to me about how both sides of the both sides that were participating, it was so clear to me that when we got to arbitration, the arbitrator asked if we were working in a circus. And because the issues that I brought forth made it really clear that, you know, the people we were working for were not doing a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
But what I had learned from that, and I'd never really done anything like that before, you know, because I was really putting myself out in the light by doing that. And what I learned was that when I participated in a lot of negative energy, I got really, really tired. And I realized at that point that if I was going to do anything to help people, it could not be done in a negative venue. It had to be done in a very positive healing venue that I was able to control, so that I can separate, you know, having to feel that constant push of, you know, think this way. I mean, it's not like I don't think in a way that is helpful, but it's you have to think like people who are on the shadow side. And I realized that I couldn't do that. Because I also was like, at one point in time, at that same period, I said, okay, well, let's see if I became a union rep, if I became somewhat of a lobbyist. I did one participation to an assembly person's office, and I said, this is not good energy. And it taught me not to go in that direction, because I always thought, oh, I probably could be a lobbyist, which I probably could, but it would be working in shadow all the time, and I knew that wasn't my journey.
Great.
So,
Good.
I think one of the sayings for Sagittarius is brighter days to come. And so I think another piece of Sagittarius that's important is that as we move into this energy, you know, like I said, we're really going to be looking at what's true for us. And, you know, it is the archetype of the seeker. And I think there's also going to be, we're going to have to make some choices during this time of really what we do believe and how we're going to go about doing it, not even just creating for the world, but even for ourselves. What do I believe to be true? Because in combining Saturn, which is foundation, you know, and Sagittarius, which is truth. So what is the foundation of that? You combine those two. What is that going to look like for each of you as you go through your lives? What is the truth of who you are? You know, and that's important, big stuff. And I just, when Rebecca made the comment about going to kindergarten, I was thinking about my 18-year-old who is about to graduate high school at the end of really in this cycle. And I mean, there's that, I see that part of her of brighter days to come, and then I see that part of her that kind of closes up and go, oh my God, the reality of really what can happen if you can feel overwhelming. And that's another thing that can happen with this energy, because it is big energy. And you can relate to that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like there can be an opening and there can be a contracting. And I think that's really going to be a little bit of what the energy can feel like too, because we have that kind of aspiration that we're going to, and we're driven to the goal, and because we're being challenged to grow, there's going to be doubt, and there's going to be insecurities that come up around that are going to challenge us to grow even more, to push us out of the box, because that's just how it works. It's the hero's journey, right? We go on the journey and we go through the trials and tribulations of life. And this is very Sagittarian a little bit in some way, because it's like, okay, so, are you going to let those doubts and those insecurities stop you? Or are you really, continue to move forward, as that kind of what it's termed in esoteric astrology as the one-pointed disciple, which I think is really cool. It's like it has a direction, and it is the disciple of the path, and it sticks to the path. Do you like that?
Well, because I realized at that time, I decided to drop out of college.
Mm.
It wasn't for me. And everyone I knew was going to college. Sisters were in universities. And I'm like, this is not my path.
Yeah. So we hold our vision, or we have a vision. I mean, this is where we can have a vision. We hold our vision, but we don't make it concrete. We don't make it a goal. We don't put it back in the box. Because, right, if Saturn is the box and what we're trying to get out of, we don't want to create another box.
Yes.
You were going to say something, Christina?
Yeah, what's so interesting is that during the Scorpio piece, like, I had divorced, sold my house, now I saw clearly that I'm traveling again. I want to do that, and I took 2 years when I was younger to travel, and now I've set up my life where I'm getting rid of all possessions, things like that, but now I'm afraid. I'm afraid to do it alone.
Yeah.
Where in my 20s, I was fearless. I didn't think twice what it was, and it was an amazing experience, even though I had such a positive experience. Nothing but positive. Now I'm like shaking like a leaf, like I would have to go to New Zealand by myself. It's like just the scariest thought.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really experiencing that. I'm actually hoping that I can get over that, because I think it would be really rewarding.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that same thing, and because I was going, okay, I'm coming to a time in my life where I have an opportunity to really be who I really am, and I feel the same way. It's very scary. It's very overwhelming. But as I'm hearing you guys talk, I realize that one of the things that I really need to take stock in is that we all have positive experiences. Like you say, even though it's positive, it's still scary. But we have to rely and have some faith in our own stuff. We didn't get to this point. And even if we, wrong choices or not, doesn't really matter.
Right.
We've all learned something, and we have to take stock of what that is, so that we can have that, so we can feel good about that scope, that Saturn foundation.
Right, what you're talking about, being the midwife of insight. As I change and grow, as I work through these things, a new awareness comes, another level of awareness. Think what you were going through then and how your wisdom is different now, because of all that 28, 29 years of cycle that you went through to get to this point. Does anybody else have anything to share? Because this is the dynamic piece that will help you see what was going on then, what you were doing is probably going to be the theme for what's to come. Susan?
Back when we were going through the last phase, the one that's about to end, that time of my life as a child, I was very scared. All these fears were coming up. I saw things on TV and didn't understand it, and fear really gripped me and controlled me. And this cycle, same thing. Past 2.5 years, irrational fears, everything. But this time I'm able to look at it and understand exactly what it is now.
Yes.
So so I feel like moving to Sagittarius, I'll be able to use those tools
Right.
to change the next cycle.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's each cycle as we have opportunities like this one, you guys putting on this class, for us to learn about those cycles is a fresh opportunity to change the next one.
Yes.
Different
Yeah, very
choices,
good.
different perspectives,
Yeah.
clarity.
Anybody else?
I thought of something.
Oh, good, Lisa.
I did my first, didn't realize it at first, my first personal growth workshop in that first scorpionic phase,
Mhm.
following the grieving cycle phase. And then when it went into Saturn, went into Sag, there was this lightheartedness and this like, oh, it's all metaphysical kind of laws. And they, oh, this is doable. This is like easy. I have all the answers.
But it was
Brought levity-
helpful.
Yeah, brought levity to it, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
and it's also the period of time when the most traveling.
Mm-hmm. The most travel, yeah. And would you say also internal travel as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wasn't as heavy, you know, there's a difference from, oh, I have so much work to do on myself, oh, I can see my way through.
Through.
Like,
Mhm.
And the physical travel is really important because it's a metaphor for, you know, not only the expansion of ourselves when we travel, but seeing life from a different perspective. I mean, we all know when we have traveled somewhere different, it doesn't have to be another country, it can be another city, state, that, you know, we're seeing different people and just a different way of being, and that opens us up and expands us.
Yes.
So it's like, it's so important to take that opportunity. So like with you, Christina, as you know, come into the Sagittarius time, and there's that, whoa, New Zealand, that feels like bigger than you, but it is you know, and to follow that. Because we all know what we fear, what do we do with fear? Well, we walk into it, right?
And that's really what Saturn says. It says, we're here. And if there's fear, address the fear.
Right.
We're here. Who else? Somebody else had their hand up. Somebody else had their hand up. Anybody else have anything to share? This is the fun dynamic part, because it's gonna give us a little bit of a hint about what we're gonna try to be working on. This is the fun part. I'm looking forward to some levity myself. So I will make one little note that sometimes these planets decide to go backwards. You don't even have to know anything other than that. But during the summer, from mid-June to mid-September, Saturn's gonna back up into Scorpio for a little bit, for about 3 months review. It says, did you get this? Did you really work on all that stuff? Did you do all that? There's always this little gap. It's like a little test, okay?
What time frame?
Mid-June to mid-September.
Go to New Zealand, is all I'm gonna say.
All it is a test to see if you've applied yourself in that area.
It's kind of like just like sweeping one more time, you know, to make sure that you got everything that you needed to get.
Yes.
So if we can look at it like that, because this is not a negative thing.
No, it is not.
This is a positive thing, so we don't want to put any type of, you know, like,
Nope.
ooh, bad, that kind of thing on it. Because
No.
it's like, no, we just really need to make sure we're clear. Because we want to go into this new energy with more clarity. And that we want to, pardon me?
I just said reborn.
Yeah, we don't want to bring the old baggage into
With
the new
it.
place.
No,
I mean,
no.
it's time to let go of the baggage,
Yeah.
literally, right? My sister's moving, I'm sorry to bring you up, but my sister,
Retiring in July.
retiring and moving, and, she's moving like big moves to smaller places. And so
Wow.
how does she bring in this, you know, what is she gonna leave behind, right? It's all so metaphoric for you, for all of us.
Yes.
Yeah. Real big, yeah. Like, our past into our present? I don't think so.
Right. And somebody earlier mentioned faith, having faith in the process.
Mhm.
Sag is all about faith and hope. And so when we have faith, you know, it's like, oh, it's, you know, things are gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna work out. And during this time, you know, if we get too bogged down into the more negative pieces, or maybe looking at it from that struggle place, I can feel kind of hopeless.
Yeah.
I can be questioning my faith. I can have, what do we call it, a spiritual depression. Ugh, what am I doing? You know, am I going the right way? Am I taking that arrow and shooting it in that direction that I want? My aspirations, is that what I want? And so, you know, it's a time to review those things.
Oh, a
Now
couple
we're gonna-
questions, let me do a couple
Yeah.
questions before you go
Yeah.
there. Okay, so, a few of the questions for the Saturn transit in Sagittarius to ask yourself are, what truths are you seeking? What ideals, beliefs need to be liberated? What archetypes need to be restructured? Meaning, what aspects of yourself need to be restructured? Where are you traveling, exploring, and learning? Where are you expanding yourself into a larger collective, meaning not just about you? And how does the collective have an effect on you? What's happening out there, how does that have an effect on you?
Yeah.
You wanna do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we thought we would do is kind of give you another example of, again, you have your own personal chart. So we're just using the chart of the United States, the signing, the moment the Declaration of Independence was signed, based on history and notes and all of that. And so we're just kind of looking at randomly, to show you again what a cycle is. Saturn is sitting right about here in this specific chart. And so what I would say to you is that Saturn, that planet of hard work, focus, discipline, mastery, is sitting somewhere in your chart. That's the fun part of astrology, if you want to use it as a tool, to look at where in your chart Saturn is sitting now, because this is a transit. It was here in this chart. It's gone around many, many times, and it's sitting there. And it's creating a theme for us collectively on this, in our world, in the United States.
An even more direct theme than what we spoke about today, as it
Yeah.
is personal to you. So what we spoke about was general, we're all feeling it, but this is right here in this chart. This particular area has a theme all to its own.
So-
Each of these have a theme.
Yes.
So everybody has one of these charts. It all looks different. So this planet will be somewhere in your chart, maybe the same place or different from where that lies.
Making a theme, and that's the fun part of astrology, is to look at that with somebody who does astrology, like Teresa or I.
Right.
We do appointments together as well, which is fun. But that's the fun dynamic part of it. So what I would also want to mention is that if you were born during 86 to 88, Erica, you're having a pretty significant Saturn experience during that time. If you have children that were born between 86 and 88, they are having a very significant experience right now. And if you had children that were born during that 83, 85 that we talked about, they just completed a very significant Saturn experience. And all of those things bring all of these themes up and into your face. It is always about, when we're looking at that planet specifically, about making mature decisions, making mature choices, looking at being responsible versus running away or denying, putting our head in the sand kind of thing. So very important, to look at, this is where I'm growing. And collectively, this is where we're all growing for this chart, for our collective experience for the United States. But just in general, we're all having this happen somewhere, everyone in this room, and that's the fun and dynamic part of astrology, to learn more about how to put a language to what it is I'm feeling and where it is that I'm going. Because that's kind of, we put two pieces together, where we've been and where we're going. So, questions?
Can you tell them just a little bit about what this means, because this is here for the
Yes,
United States?
I will, yeah. Does anybody have that question? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Okay, so Saturn happens to be transiting through the 12th house in this chart. You don't need to know anything about that other than what I'll tell you. So everything that we have put under wraps, under cover in our collective history that we don't want to look at, and things that drive us, are all being brought to the surface. Okay, and so I posted some of this on my Facebook astrology page. This country is an archetypal bully. Okay? We were founded on that principle.